Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 87 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we are going to be joined by motorsports writer for The Athletic. Jeff Gluck is here as we will talk all things NASCAR playoff and look back at the weekend that was at Las Vegas. A lot of news to cover, everything from Kurt Busch to Tyler Reddick to Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson, and also, there was still a race that happened, too. We'll dive into all that and look ahead to this next weekend at Homestead. Also, going to talk about the F1 race going on in Austin, Texas this weekend as well. We'll dive into that when Jeff joins us in just a few moments from right now. We'll have our news and notes segment, our Ask David segment at the end of the show as well. David off this week, me and Dominic holding things down here on the show. And as always, we are presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard this year as the primary sponsor on David's 08 Ford Mustang. We want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com joins us right now. Dom, what a time right now. I mean, there is no shortage of things to get to cover. Are we going to be able to do it all in an hour tonight?
Well, we'll certainly try. We're going to certainly try. So many things that dropped Tuesday, so many things that happened at the race Sunday. And like you said, oh, yeah, there was a 400-mile race that did happen, but just so much to unpack, so much to uncover. I was there. Jeff Gluck was there. It's going to be awesome to break all this down here in a few minutes.
Yeah, and, you know, with that, with David out, we don't want to wait to, on our guest here. We want to bring Jeff in right away and get right into the nitty-gritty of the discussion of the weekend and everything. Dom, Jeff. You've seen him and his work for a long time. NASCAR fans are very familiar with Jeff Gluck. Tell us about Jeff Gluck before we officially welcome him into the show.
Yeah, we'll give him the grand entrance. So I've personally known Jeff about 10 years now. I've seen him at the racetrack across the country for quite some time as we've covered the sport, but he's held roles at USA Today. He was an entrepreneur, did it with JeffGluck.com for a couple of years, and now he's with The Athletic. We're talking an award-winning motorsports journalist. Tyler, this guy has more followers on Twitter than some drivers and some teams combined. So none other than one of the best motorsports beat writers traveling the circuit who covers the sport full time. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here on Let's Go Racing.
Yeah, absolutely. You came on my podcast for one of the post-race editions in the past, so I'm happy to return the favor here. It's nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we've done your show a couple of times. Phoenix one year, Auto Club the next year, and you guys do a really good job there with the teardown, and love the instant reaction you guys do with your guys' show. But give us some of your instant reactions, some of your feedback, and just like what you thought with the race in Las Vegas, right? The opening race of the round 8. We had
of everything.
I know. Where do we even begin, Jeff? Where do we begin to unpack this weekend?
Well, obviously the Bubba thing is probably the big story that overshadowed everything. I'm sure we'll get to that, but just the race in general, it was a big relief for me. And what I mean by that is, like, I thought this was the best regular season ever. And I was really excited for the playoffs and how they were going to unfold. And I just was like, certainly if this has been the best regular season and been wide open, the racing's been so good, like the playoffs are going to be even better. It's just going to be a perfect cap for all this. And we're really going to see who's the best and who steps up. And really, for the first couple rounds of the playoffs, that wasn't really the case. I mean, you had non-playoff drivers winning, of course, but it was also like the stories were about, Kevin Harvick's car catches on fire for no reason. Power steering issues, tires going down. Then you had, Bowman gets hurt, and with the safety concerns and all the drivers sounding off about this car needs to be fixed and, needs to be safer. And it turned into this, back and forth sort of drama with NASCAR and the drivers, and they're having meetings. And that was what everybody was talking about. That was what everybody was covering. And then the racing itself wasn't necessarily like good enough to sort of overcome that. Like it'd be one thing if that was a storyline during the week, but then, you got to the race and you were like, wow, that wasn't even a good race. That wasn't satisfying. Like the Texas race or something, like the leaders kept blowing tires, or, the way guys were getting eliminated at Bristol with mechanical stuff. You're like, man, this is not what I was looking for out of this. So to go to Vegas and finally have what we sort of thought as like the traditional straightforward playoff race, we got to see, the best cars sort of duke it out. We got to see two very aggressive playoff drivers, go head to head in the final laps. Ross Chastain trying to block, and Logano, the master of blocking himself, trying to, use all the tricks in his book with his fresher tires to overcome that. And I just thought, by the time that got done, I thought, wow, I think everybody just needed a race like this, where it was just like a just straightforward, nice playoff race. It was exciting. And I was very pleased with it. And I hope that can continue this week at Homestead, obviously.
Yeah, hope so. And with that, with Joey getting the win and locking a spot in the championship 4, Jeff, Joey seems like he's quietly had a good year this year. What do you make of his title odds here? Do you think he's got a good shot of hoisting that trophy when it's all said and done here in a couple of weeks at Phoenix?
He certainly does. I mean, it's and like you said, it's sort of been quiet in a way. They didn't really show much speed at the start of the year, and everybody was sort of like, what's wrong with the Fords? I mean, it was like the Chevys were winning, the Toyotas were winning. Ford really wasn't doing much, and especially at the bigger tracks, it was like, is Ford, what's going on with them? So it was kind of easy to overlook them as a whole. I mean, especially like, before Harvick had won those races, you had Chase Briscoe win Phoenix early in the year. But, before Harvick had won those couple races, SHR as a whole really wasn't doing anything. And even Briscoe went 21 races where he only had one top 10 in the middle of the year. And then, you're looking at the Penske guys, and it was like, well, Blaney, I mean, yeah, he's having a consistent season, but he hasn't won. And then Austin Cindric won the Daytona 500, but it wasn't like he was really following that up necessarily. And then Logano, it was like you kind of kept waiting for him to show some of his speed, but I don't know, it just didn't really feel like it was coming. So now to see them, he gets to this point, and you look at his stats and you go, wait a minute, he's like, he has like the second best average finish in the series. He's tied for second in wins. He's tied for fifth in top 5s and top 10s. He's led a decent number of laps. So all of a sudden you go, oh wait, he does have a Final Four-ish resume. But we just hadn't really seen that, I guess, until that point. But now that he's there, he could certainly win it. I mean, he's absolutely going to know what to, it's his 5th time in the championship race. I mean, I could easily see him win. I don't think it would be a surprise at all if he did.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, Jeff. He's certainly a contender there. And I know Ross Chastain didn't get the win, but it's been a minute since he did win this year, and was competing for wins necessarily. I thought, Jeff, that even though he didn't get the checkered flag at the end of the day, I thought that was a big day for Ross Chastain. What say you?
Yeah, I thought that was huge. And I know that, he was, after the race initially, he was kind of like, man, if I just made one move different, maybe I could have blocked Logano. But I asked Logano afterwards, like, with you coming on the fresher tires like that, is there any move Chastain could have made, blocking wise to keep you behind? And Logano was like, there was no chance. I mean, I had so much more speed with the fresher tires at that point. Now, Ross could have done something that we've seen from him in the past, where he could have made an overly aggressive move or something and wrecked both them, or, tried to make contact or something like that. But that wasn't necessary in that situation. It wasn't going to help him win anyway. So I think he did the best he could out of that situation, and he's continued to show speed. It seems like the drivers that he had made mad early in the year are not really gunning for him anymore. Denny Hamlin is still in the playoffs trying to make it, so he can't really afford to mess with Ross. And then the other drivers, I mean, what are they going to do at this point? Like, they're going to try to take somebody out of a Final Four spot? That wouldn't be, for whatever he's done to anybody, ruffled feathers, that's not an appropriate reaction. So it feels like he's got a chance to actually just go race it out at this point. And I think that's, he has very little, Cup experience in a good car. I mean, he had Cup experience before he got to Trackhouse and even Ganassi, but it was in backmarker type stuff. So this is really, he's still new at this, and he's going to have a shot. I mean, he could win the championship too, honestly. Let's be, he's got the speed.
No, he most certainly does. And you look at the points and how they've shifted now with 2 races left in this round. Are you shocked still? Like I am. I don't know. I can't speak on Tyler's behalf, but the fact that we talked about how Ford kind of struggled this year, Stewart Haas Racing and Chase Briscoe. I mean, he's put together 4 straight top 10 finishes now, 6th in points, still has a chance where he could go out and point his way into the Final Four. I'm still shocked, honestly, myself. That we haven't Chase Briscoe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we probably all had him out in the first round, right? Like I said, when you go 21 races with only 1 top 10 finish, and that extends even into the playoffs, how can you look at a guy like that, and especially with not having any, it's not like he had Chase Elliott style playoff points where he had a cushion. You're looking at a team like that and you're going, oh, that's going to be an easy one out. Austin Dillon, yeah, he'll go out early. Briscoe, he'll go out early, But yeah, I mean, here they are, 3 races to go. They're still in it. And the way that gosh, like, you look at their Vegas race, he gets lapped in stage 1. It looks pretty grim. And then, we're all like, see, there you go. He doesn't have it. There's no chance here. And by the end of the race, he doesn't, fluke his way into something, back his way into something. He races up there to 4th. And in fact, he was the leader on one of the late restarts. And, he said he didn't time it right in the restart zone, and he allowed everybody to sort of stay with him, and he was beating himself up for that. But geez, like, he's still in it. He's absolutely still in it. And Homestead's a great track for him. I don't know about Martinsville, but he could have a chance to go out and win Homestead, lock himself in. Now, that's a guy there where you still don't think, okay, he's not really championship caliber, that team, but at the same time, he won Phoenix in the spring. And if he can just get there, I'm sure the cars have changed a lot, but we could see him win. So, he's going to be very dangerous if he can get himself still eligible to Phoenix. And that would be the all-time shock, really, if he was able to win the championship in this playoff format. That would be the biggest surprise we've ever had.
So what would be more of a surprise? Him going out, making the run he's making, win the title, or say somebody like Ryan Blaney, who has been ultra consistent all season, makes it to the championship 4, and we see the first time in this era where a driver wins a championship without winning a race?
I still think the Briscoe thing would be more surprising, just in the fact that, like, if Blaney won and we were doing this podcast after, we would be saying to ourselves, well, yeah, it's kind of crazy that, he won, he's a winless champion, and this format was set up to reward wins and playoff points, all stuff. But we could always say, but he was still fast all year, And so I think that sort of consistent speed and being, second in the points for most of the regular season, you'd look at that and say, well, it is kind of weird that he didn't win. Obviously, that is very weird, especially in this format. But this year's so wide open, you could almost sort of justify it or twist it in a way to say, okay, I could see how that could make sense a little bit. But the Briscoe thing, still, it just didn't feel like he had the performance all year. And then it's not even that he's like really gotten hot at this point, but he's doing enough and getting the finishes. Texas, again, he was 20 whatever place and ends up 5th. Vegas, totally out to lunch, ends up 4th. So they're doing what you need to do. It's still not what we traditionally think of as like a NASCAR championship season.
It's
especially with a driver,
not the sexy way, right? Yeah.
I don't even, if I remember correctly, Jeff, I don't even think he has double-digit top tens, or if he does, it's maybe 10 or 11 on the entire year. That's not traditional at this time of year if you're a championship contender.
No, but the other thing about that is like I was looking at a bunch of these guys' stats, and really, I mean, they're all sort of down compared to even their normal career totals. Even like Logano, I was looking, and when you look at Logano's stats for the season, you go, oh, like, boy, he's having, like his average finish, I think, for Logano is down compared to some of his other seasons. Or like William Byron, for instance, he's on pace to have like the worst average finish since like his rookie season. But then you go, oh, well, he's fifth in points and, just one spot below the cutoff line with a chance to go to the Final Four. Yeah, like you said, Chase Briscoe, he has 8 top 10s this season. His average finish is 17.4. So that's not what you think of as a title contender, like you said. But at the same time, it's just been so wide open, and there's been so many ups and downs and so much struggle to find consistency for these guys, that I think that's the thing. It's really how you compare to the rest of the season rather than a traditional championship outlook.
So let's get to the Bubba Wallace situation now. NASCAR hands him a 1-race suspension. Jeff, what do you think of the decision by NASCAR? Was it the right call? Did it fit the situation? And is it consistent with things like this of the past?
Well, that's a couple of different things, because I would argue it's not consistent. However, I 100% think it's the right call. I mean, as soon as that happened on Sunday, I was like, you have to suspend him for that. I mean, sorry. You cannot have drivers at a high-speed track like Las Vegas right rear someone and hook them toward the wall. Kyle Larson's very lucky that Christopher Bell was there to sort of prevent him from going straight into the wall. Christopher Bell is very unlucky that he was there, but Larson, that could have been really bad. That could have been seriously bad. And you just can't let your competitors do that. I understand they've let, they didn't suspend Noah Gragson at Road America, right? He turned Sage Karam, wrecks like half the field, and they dock him like 30 points and 30 grand or whatever it was. And so you would say, well, how come they didn't spin him there? But I think even a road course is different. Spinning someone off track or bumping someone off track at a road course, it's not great, but it's different. Spinning someone at a short track, or even spinning someone at an intermediate track, but spinning them with the left rear and spinning them into the grass, where that's not great. Again, like William Byron sort of did with Denny Hamlin to bump him into the grass under caution. None of that's like great or acceptable. But when you get to a position where you're going 170 miles per hour and you just turn someone into the wall, that's, especially with all the safety stuff we've been talking about. I mean, these even minor hits, knocking guys out. I mean, Bubba Wallace's own teammate, right? Kurt Busch. Bubba Wallace was standing in the press conference where Kurt Busch is getting emotional over he's not going to be able to race anymore because of head injuries. And the next day, Bubba goes and does that. And Larson's teammate as well, Alex Bowman, is out with concussion stuff. So I just think NASCAR had to step in. And if NASCAR, if they just do a fine there, what does that really say? We're going to fine you $100 grand. Okay. I mean, you have to have a situation where the penalty is severe enough that the next time any driver is seeing red and they're like having that flash of anger and they're like, I'm going to go get this guy, at least make them think in the back of their head, if you do this, you might be sitting out. Not like, I'm going to do this and it cost me $100 grand. I don't care. Whatever. It's worth it because I'm so mad right now, At least make them think, okay, you're going to get parked. Is it worth it? There's plenty of other ways to retaliate. He could have gotten him back later. He could have gotten him back in another race. He could have fought him after the race on pit road. I think all those things, any of those would have resulted in not getting suspended. But unfortunately, the move he made, I just think NASCAR, they had to do that. And I'm glad that they took a stance like that personally.
Well, and for me too, Jeff, we've talked about for a long time of how different it is when you're dealing with playoff circumstances, right? Not trying to affect the championship. That 5 team's still running for an owner's championship. Christopher Bell was a casualty in this too, as we mentioned, going for a championship here. I mean, to have a negative effect on the playoff, I mean, that's just not fair for those involved here.
Yeah, and it was interesting because NASCAR seemed to indicate, Steve O'Donnell went on Sirius Radio, and he seemed to indicate that the playoffs element of it was not really a consideration for them, which I was a little bit surprised about. He also said Bubba walking on the track was not part of the penalty. Touching the official wasn't part of it. It was purely about that wreck and the safety element of it. That's what they weren't comfortable with. So that was an interesting call.
Absolutely. Sure. And you look at it too with one race. Is that enough? Should it have been for the rest of the season? I mean, I know we're playing with fire here, but should it have been more races? Should NASCAR have sent a bigger message, or do you think one race suffices?
I think one race gets a message across, because one race, even that is pretty rare. I mean, this is the first time they've suspended a driver for doing something on track since 2015 with Matt Kenseth. So, I mean, it doesn't happen very often. It's been a long time since they took this kind of action. So, a driver never wants to sit out of the car, and it's a pretty big deal when you have to go through the suspension process of, the scrutiny from the media, the fans, TV, NASCAR, your sponsors, your team, everybody being unhappy with you for various reasons. The other drivers, everybody sort of feel, against you. And a driver's worst fear is really getting pulled out of the car. So I think one race is enough of a message, and he'll get the point across. He's not going to be happy about it, but he'll understand going forward that, and everybody will, which is really, really key for the garage too, because every driver is paying attention to that. And if they didn't suspend him there, drivers are going to say, okay, well, it's a little bit open season now. I can really go really extreme if I want to, and nothing terrible is going to happen. So, getting pulled out of the car is, even for one race, that's enough.
What I wonder too, now that this suspension is going down, and when Bubba makes his return, and you mentioned the sponsors he still has to answer to, his fans, Toyota 2311, and everything like that. What do you think is going to be his reception among fans and then other drivers when he does make that return? Do you think he and Kyle Larson, do you think this is going to linger on between those two? Where does everything go from here?
I think with him and Larson, I mean, they're friends enough that they'll probably get over it fairly quickly, or, I don't think they'll probably be playing golf together not that long from now. I mean, I don't think it'll be like a permanent rivalry or something like that, but the fans, I mean, look, Bubba unfortunately was already a target of a lot of fans. He has to deal with a ton of hate and racism just on a normal day when he does nothing. Now, unfortunately, he's given a ton of fuel to people who are already inclined to hate him, and even the people that support him. You can't really defend his actions here, including his own team. I mean, the statement, that you look at their statement from 2311, and they're like, we're aligned with NASCAR. What Bubba did was not acceptable, and we've made that known to him, stuff like that. So I think driver introductions at Martinsville, when Bubba walks across that stage, are going to be some of the loudest boos we've heard in a long time. They're not going to let him forget this anytime soon. I do think it's somewhat fortunate for him that the playoffs are still going on, and especially like when he'll come back, it's going to be the semifinal race, people trying to make the Final Four, then you'll have the championship, then you'll have the off season. So it'll be overall forgotten fairly quickly. This won't have I don't think it'll have a very long news cycle, I wouldn't expect, but the fans they're going to let it be known that they're not pleased with him for a while.
Well, Jeff, another thing too, we know that on Twitter, right, fans lit up on both sides of it, but as well as the promotion side of it too. Las Vegas Motor Speedway tweeting it out, later retracting that, and then the print version that ended up getting sent out. I don't know which paper that was, but I know Pete Pistone had put that out. And I mean, where is that balance drawn there too? Because we know stuff like this does sell, but does this certainly has to put the sport in a tough spot.
Well, I would think that Las Vegas Motor Speedway was the one that, you know, they put it on their social, they put the ad in the Las Vegas newspaper. I would guess NASCAR is probably not pleased about that, probably not thrilled, but at the same time, they could say that now. And of course, we'll see this used as in an advertisement on Fox before the season next year. Check out this season. It's going to be crazy and people are going to get mad and they're going to show this incident. They're going to show them shoving. So, I mean, there's always, I hate that part of it, honestly, like the hypocrisy of penalizing drivers for incidents or whatever, and then using them in commercials, or like even the Ryan Newman wreck being used in like promotional stuff. I thought that was so tasteless. I hate that. You know, there was a while there where I know it seems mind-blowing to think about this now, but there was for a long time, like back when I was at NASCAR scene, I want to say, and even almost up to my USA Today days, I think, which started in 2013, there was sort of like this unwritten rule that NASCAR would never use crash footage in TV commercials. And when they started doing it around the mid 2010s, it was like it was a big shock at the time. Like, whoa, they're using crash footage now to sell races? Wow, that's big, because it was sort of like, hey, these are incidents that are not safe, and this could have been bad. So they just wouldn't do that in commercials. It would be about the racing itself, really, like close finishes and drivers making moves. And now you see all the time cars flipping over, drivers running into each other, you know, fighting, all this stuff. That's how they used to sell it. I personally don't think like the ad that was in the Las Vegas paper, and it was like round 2 coming next March and stuff like that. I don't even know what they were trying to do with that. I thought that was really a miss. I just don't get that. Like, why would you think, oh, you know what? I want to see that again. I want to see that incident. I want to see what's going to happen next. So I'm going to buy my tickets now. What happened on Sunday? I don't want to see that anymore. I don't care between what drivers. I don't want to go to a race and see that ever. So how could that be a selling point of like, oh yeah, you know, check this out, buy your tickets? Like, no, I don't want to. No, please tell them not to do that next time I come, you know?
Right.
So that was my take on it.
That's a good point. We mentioned Bubba Wallace, the 2311 team, along those same lines, shifting gears here. Big announcement the day prior about Kurt Busch stepping aside from full-time racing. Tyler Reddick coming in to that car to be Bubba's teammate next year. Jeff, what was your reaction to that announcement on Saturday?
Well, it wasn't a surprise. You know, you kind of got the feeling that things weren't going very well for Kurt in him trying to come back, you know, and get healthy again. It's just a shame, honestly. Like, you know, the guy, you know, there was a long time in his career where you could say nobody really would have missed him had he left NASCAR, right? I mean, he was, you know, very prickly and petulant and, you know, just so difficult and really not well liked because of his behavior and the way he conducted himself. But fortunately for him, his talent allowed him to stay afloat in the sport, and it sort of gave him a chance to stick around long enough to really reshape his image and grow and mature. And by the end, you know, he became a very, very, very well-liked figure in the garage by other drivers, by his team. His sponsors love him. The fans really embraced him. So then you get to this point and you're like, okay, I'm going to run maybe one more year next year. And you're at Pocono and qualifying and crash. And that's it. And it's like, man, that's so unsatisfying, because he was building towards sort of like he'd won a race, at least one race in a bunch of seasons in a row, and really just like he was still competitive and fast. And as Denny Hamlin said the other day, I mean, who knows what he could have done in the playoffs, given how these playoffs were. A veteran guy like that, not, who could stay out of trouble and had a fast car and could point his way through and navigate his way through. He might have had a shot at getting to Phoenix, and it's just a shame. I mean, Zach Sterniolo from NASCAR.com pointed out that if you watch that video where Kurt crashes at Pocono, right before he crashes, Dale Jr. is saying on the broadcast, and Kurt is as good as he's ever been. His talent level is still right there. And just at that moment, his car breaks loose and hits the wall. And that's like the last lap of his full-time career anyway. Now you hope that he's able to come back maybe for a race next year and do it on his own terms, but you also don't want him to risk hurting himself again. And obviously he's not 100% now. And that was in July, and here we are in October, mid-October. So just really unfortunate. And it just hits home that the next gen car has got to be fixed. The safety issues have got to be addressed, because that car essentially, I know people don't want to necessarily blame it, but it seems like it's ended a future Hall of Famer's career prematurely. So it's really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very sad that it worked out that way. Tyler Reddick going over 2311 a year early. What do you think about that move, and what do you expect out of Tyler Reddick next year with that team?
I'm glad he's getting out of RCR, because I didn't think they treated him very well. He announced, I mean, if I gave my boss 18 months notice and was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm going to work as hard as I can over these next 18 months, but when my deal's up, I'm going to be going to do something else. I think my boss would be like, well, that's cool. Like, I have plenty of time to plan ahead here. I can really, I know you're going to work hard, and you give me your word, and I'll be able to find someone to replace you. And, I'm not getting the rug pulled out from under me kind of thing. And I would think that would be appreciated. However, when Reddick did it, it was not appreciated, and it made things awkward for him at RCR. Again, I think unfairly. I mean, they put out that statement that says the timing could not have been any worse. And, he then pushes Austin Dillon into the playoffs, gives up sacrificed a chance to win him for himself at Daytona, which would have been 5 more bonus points for the playoffs. But he loyally pushed his teammate into the playoffs, and it still seemed like it was awkward there. Richard Childress was still like, yeah, I'm going to take your team away. I'm going to put you in a third car, because now we're going to go get Kyle Busch. And so I think it's great that it worked out this way, because first of all, I think when you look at it, the timing actually couldn't have been any better, because 2311 needed a replacement for Kurt. And if they hadn't gone out and gotten Reddick, or at least started that talks, they would have had to have 1 year with sort of a fill-in driver, which I guess would have been John Hunter Nemechek perhaps. But it's better for them to get Reddick now. And then the other thing about the timing and the announcement is, had Reddick not told them that he was leaving well in advance, RCR wouldn't have gone out and gotten Kyle Busch, because they wouldn't have realized that they had a seat. If Reddick had waited to the offseason to say, oh, by the way, I'm leaving, what would RCR be left with? So it worked out for RCR. It worked out for 2311. I assume there's financial consideration as well. Like 2311 had to give something up, I would assume, to get Reddick a year early. So it worked out for everybody. I think it's a great thing. So now Reddick will really be able to show what he can do. And I think next year, had he been in like a third car, like sort of junk startup team that was just existing just to give him a place to run for a year, I don't think that would have been a very successful year for him. So
lame duck year.
Yeah. So I think it would have been, I think this is a good move for everybody, really.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. We're joined by Jeff Gluck of The Athletic here on Let's Go Racing this week, as we're talking about everything going on in the NASCAR world, and also on the F1 side, Dominic. Pretty exciting F1 back in Austin again.
F1's back in Austin for the Grand Prix this weekend. Oh, that's right, Jeff. You're going this weekend.
I am going. I'm excited. I'm excited to go. I went to the Miami Grand Prix earlier this season in May, and I've only been to the Austin one once in 2017. So it's going to be interesting to be back, 5 years later and see how it's going to be. But the track is saying they're expecting over 400,000 people again for the course of the weekend, the 3-day weekend, and that's pretty big. I mean, all of a sudden the questions have been, well, how's the United States going to handle 2 F1 races in a year? And then next year they're going to have 3 F1 races in a year with them going down the Vegas Strip next November. And but the fact that the attendance is looking like it's going to be so robust for the weekend, seems like things are going pretty well so far. And this is with the championship decided already. I mean, Max Verstappen's already won the title. And so there's not going to be any, title battle drama or anything like that. I mean, I guess the big question of the weekend is if Max Verstappen wins on Sunday, he will tie the Formula One single season wins record with 13. Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel have that record. So that would be big, to do it on US soil in front of a big crowd, obviously. But we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how does the U.S. crowd, get into it when it's, they're just going for the race, really, because again, like the title, for all intents and purposes, I mean, I guess, somebody could get 5th or 6th or 2nd or 3rd could change hands or something, but the big prize is already done. So, I'm curious to see how that'll go.
So you've covered these races, you've been to NASCAR races, you've been to IndyCar races. I'm curious personally, how does the energy at an F1 race and an F1 race weekend compare and contrast to, let's say, a NASCAR race weekend?
I mean, F1 is crazy energy because you have so many people who, so many non-Americans really, who might live in America, but they're coming with their country's flags, and they're, kind of have like the soccer crowd type vibe in a way where they're chanting and cheering and very excited, very sort of like nationalistic about their drivers, right? And then you have obviously the American crowd who has been really sucked into F1 thanks to Drive to Survive. And, for them, these drivers became, sort of like movie stars, TV stars, watching it. Now you get to see them race and you see them all over the world going to all these glamorous places. And, they were just in Japan and they were in Singapore and, they go to all these just glamorous, amazing places that seem just so far away. And now they're coming to our backyard. It's like, oh, they're in our town. They're on our soil. I was getting a kick out of Valtteri Bottas. He and his partner, they were in Kansas City this weekend, going around Kansas City, posting pictures of like them at restaurants and coffee shops. And it's like, wow, they're enjoying Kansas City. They were just in Tokyo. It's like, here, Kansas City, check this place out. Isn't this cool, everybody? Stuff like that. So I think it's great to see. It's cool to see what the F1 drivers do when they come here. Lewis Hamilton is a part owner of the Denver Broncos now, and he went to the Monday Night Football game last night or the other night, and was sitting in the box and watching the game and had his Broncos jersey that he was given and stuff like that. So stuff like that's neat to just see what they do when they come to America. And I'm curious to see how it'll go. But the vibe, I mean, is just NASCAR. It feels like these are a lot of NASCAR fans go to several races a year. They feel like they know the drivers on a first name basis because they've just watched them for years and years and years. And the F1 guys just seem, it's like people go crazy for them when they, even there's people outside the tunnel screaming like a movie star or a rock star. BTS is coming through the tunnel. Oh my gosh, oh, it's so-and-so,
Yeah.
So, it's crazy the rock star treatment that those guys get compared to, NASCAR, where they just feel like, oh, there's Chase Elliott. I love Chase. Go Chase,
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, the marketing from F1 has just been incredible. And I know that, Jeff, I mean, we hear people say, you know, oh, NASCAR should do this like F1, whatever. I think all sports could learn from what F1's doing to market their stars. I mean, baseball can't market their stars right now. You know, I mean, like there's something they're doing a great job of with this series and, you know, the U.S. popularity, the way it's taken off, adding multiple races the way they have here. I mean, they ought to be teaching college courses or something based on the way F1 has really found a way to market its stars the way it has and grown the U.S. at the rate it has.
I think another key for that, it's a fantastic point. And as you're saying that, I think it makes me think that another key is that the F1 drivers buy into that vision. Yes. Like they have seen, okay, wow, Netflix is really making us grow. Like these crowds are crazy, or like these fun little skits that our teams want us to do, or this fun little content, or these extra media stuff. This helps us grow. And so they buy in and they show their personalities and they are willing to go do maybe sort of goofy stuff at times. I feel like in NASCAR, there's still a lot of pushback from the drivers. You know, they feel like they do too much media when in reality, like the F1 guys, for instance, do way more media. You know, the NASCAR drivers, it's sort of like they would rather, I think, a lot of times just come and, you know, sort of do their job and not have to do any of these obligations and just race and leave, where I'm sure the F1 guys would like to do that, but they realize, wow, like all of our success is tied together, and all the reason that we are getting so popular around the world, everywhere, in Europe too. I mean, even like the Silverstone race, which has been on the F1 calendar since the first year of F1, I think they had like a record attendance this year. So even like in England and in France and Italy and stuff, they're getting huge numbers. So the popularity worldwide has never been higher. And I think that just spurs those drivers to do more because they see, hey, this is working. So, I mean, sure, we'll keep going with it. This is making us international celebrities. They're some of the most famous athletes on the entire planet right now.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. We'll get to our news and notes segment in just one moment. Before we do, today's show is presented by our friends at TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter is the official ticket resale marketplace of Worldwide Technology Raceway, where David won 2004. Fans can also get tickets to any type of event, including sports, concerts, and theater productions. TicketSmarter is committing to helping those in need by donating $1 from every transaction to various charity organizations. Head over to TicketSmarter.com to find tickets for upcoming events. That's TicketSmarter.com. Dominic, time for our news and notes, and got a little movement at Spire for next year, right?
We sure do. Well, you thought we covered all the headlines. There's still more news going on throughout the week. On Tuesday, October 18th, Spire Motorsports announced their Cup Series lineup for 2023. Corey LaJoie will be returning to Spire Motorsports, where Ty Dillon will also be joining the ranks as a full-time driver at the organization. He'll be piloting the number 77 car next year, led by Kevin Bellacourt atop the pit box. Ty Dillon ran at Petty GMS Racing this season full-time, his first full-time venture in the Cup Series since 2020. And Corey LaJoie returns for his third season. So we saw that 77 car run a few drivers this year, sponsorship from Landon Castle, Josh Bilicki, Mike Rockenfeller at the road courses, and Justin Allgaier ran one race as well. But we're going to see stability in those two cars moving forward come next season.
Jeff, between that Spire car going with a full-time driver, we see also over at Colleague, the 16 car is going to have full-time driver and AJ here. It looks like there's less and less of these part-time seats of the charter teams now.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. You're right. I mean, you know, you'd seen those cars be sort of like a revolving door or a chance for different drivers to get in and run some one-off races and things like that. And yeah, it's sort of like where are you gonna see those opportunities as often now to get guys some more experience, or maybe to get some guys just in, you know, occasional races, you know, not counting like the Project 91 stuff, which is built for that kind of thing in a way. But I think it's good to have that consistency, to be honest. Like, I think it's good for the fans to look at a car, to know who's in it every week, to build up, whether it's the rivalries, the storylines, or, I think Corey LaJoie's been such a great example of this, where, everybody's sort of invested in his stacking pennies, mindset and story. And everybody's sort of following it, like, okay, they know he's an underdog. They know he doesn't have the resources. They know, like, it's a long shot for him to win. But then when he runs well, it's sort of like, wow, that's really cool. And I think that's just another storyline for fans to sink their teeth into every week. Going back to F1 for a second, that's what one of the things they do so well, because F1, you really, like we were just talking about, Max Verstappen wins 13 races or whatever he's going to end up with, 14 by the end of the year, 15, who knows? And he's running with the title, and you can say, well, this is boring. Why would anybody watch? But then when like a Williams car even finishes 10th, and they're jumping up and down and celebrating and hugging each other, wow, amazing. Like, we got points today, awesome job. I can't believe this kind of thing. You're sort of invested in that story because they're struggling teams. So I know NASCAR would rather have all the parity all the way across the board and have like 36 drivers that can win. But I think you need to have sort of that underdog mentality at times. And, some of these newer cars, Allmendinger, he won't be an underdog because he can win at a road course. So he might go make the playoffs. But, when you talk about like a Rick Ware Racing and, like their number 15 car and stuff like that, it's like sometimes when the 15 car spins, I'm like, who's in this car? I'm not sure. It would be nice to just know, okay, well, that's that guy. Or if you've seen them clash, you say, oh, those cars are getting together again. I just think that helps all the narrative that goes on in NASCAR.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Dominic, tell us about this weekend here at Homestead. This race was the longest time, the championship race. We've seen some great moments over the years here.
We sure have. This will be the 24th installment of the NASCAR Cup Series at Homestead Miami Speedway. From 2002 to 2019, the track hosted the NASCAR finale before it got moved to Phoenix Raceway, where it's been the host of the championship the last few years. But Jeff, Tyler, I feel like this time around, having Homestead in the playoffs, having the weight that, it had so much weight as the championship race for 17 years, but to actually see it back in the playoffs as compared to maybe a regular season race in March or April, I feel like that nostalgia is back, at least from my perspective. It's cool to see Homestead back this late in the schedule, and it's only race day.
Dude, this was actually the hardest choice easily of the season for me. Because Jordan Bianchi, my coworker, and I were going back and forth. Who's going to go to Homestead? Who's going to go to COTA for the F1 race? And we were both like, man, I could make a case for either one because, like you, I have such a soft spot in my heart for Homestead. And I had not been there since the last championship race there. I didn't go, after, in the pandemic, I didn't go last year. And I would love to just roll through that tunnel again and feel all the vibes of all the championship races I went to there. I guess from, 2007 to, what was it? Last one, 2019. I went to all the championship races there and, saw some of the greatest race I've ever seen. That Tony Stewart, Carl Edwards one was absolutely breathtaking. 2016 with the Logano Edwards crash, and then Jimmy ends up winning it. Stuff like that. It's just like, wow, I would just love to walk around the area again, walk around the garage and just feel that, because I think Homestead is such an important track. And I think the championship race should go back there at some point. Phoenix has been great, but it's been fine. It's a good host. It's a great host, but the racing, I think at Homestead was really special. So I'm glad that Homestead has a high profile spot again. I was worried when they had just thrown it into March and just been like, good luck. And nobody came. And it was like, the development is creeping down at that track. All the houses are getting closer and closer and closer. And that land is getting more and more valuable. To when they built that place, it was just out in the middle of nowhere, sort of. And I'm sure it's I'm sure they've looked at being like, should we just sell this place? Why do we need this track? But I hope they don't. I hope they keep investing in it. I hope the crowds keep going, because I think it's a very important track for NASCAR, and it's the best mile-and-a-half track on the schedule.
Making the case for a finale return someday, maybe.
I'm all about it. I mean, if I know they probably want to do the Fontana track next when they turn it into a short track. That's probably where they'll put the finale, probably, because they want to put the finale where they're investing a lot of money,
right?
So, but I don't know. I'm in the Homestead camp personally.
Tyler, you've been there. What did you think of the place? The last Homestead race that we went, it was the last championship race in 19.
Oh, I love that place. Homestead is awesome, and I'll say this and Jeff, you were probably there as somebody that went to the last two before this year, Kansas races that for whatever reason were in late October. That made no sense. Too cold. I'm just glad that we got tracks like Miami at this point in the playoff. Like, that's where people want to go. We don't need to be going to Kansas at this point in the year. I'm sure the weather's probably going to be good, barring any rain or something. Let's do the Homesteads and the Phoenixes of the world at the end of the season. We don't need to go to Kansas right now. Any northern
and Vegas too. Moving Vegas from, that was, I think it was in the first round of the playoffs for a bit there, and it was super, super, super hot. Vegas, it was like unbelievably
100 degrees in that 2018 race, Jeff.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Nobody wanted to sit outside in that. So then to move that to mid-October like it was this year, that was a great move too, because it was still warm, but much more tolerable, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, get those warm weather tracks. Nobody wants to go sit in 40-degree, wind chill or something like that. And just, I know that can be football weather, but NASCAR fans travel and they like destinations too, so
right.
Give them a destination when it starts to get cold. Give them somewhere to go that's nice.
Who do you like this weekend, Jeff?
It's tough. It's tough because we're so used to like Larson, Reddick, people that run the wall at Homestead. But I think now everybody's going to run the wall. Like when those guys started doing it, especially like Larson and showing the way, it was like, wow, Larson's running the wall. Everybody else is not. Now everybody's going to be up on the wall, probably. So that's going to make it hard to pass. And it's also going to make it tough to differentiate yourself. It's going to be more of a track position race. So I'm not really sure, but I was thinking it was going to be somewhat of a Toyota race last weekend. At Vegas, obviously it didn't quite turn out that way, but I think I might pick Denny Hamlin. I just think they had some speed. They showed, especially the first day of the test when they unloaded. They were pretty fast. So, I think I'll go Denny Hamlin.
How about you, Dominic?
Man, Denny Hamlin's not a bad pick. Another driver that could punch that ticket to Phoenix as a championship title contender. But I guess to be different, I'm going to go Kyle Larson. I think Kyle Larson gets it done at Homestead. He's won in the Xfinity Series there before, I believe in 2015. He'll get his first Cup Series Homestead win. Tyler, who's it going to be?
He ran good last week, and I like his driving style for this type of track. I'm going to go Ross Chastain this week.
Not the typical Ryan Blaney pick there, Tyler.
No. Blaney's let me down too much. I was going to pick him every week until he won, but I think I've given up that ship at this point. I'll go with Ross Chastain to win this week.
And, of course, if David was here, he'd pick Kevin Harvick to win.
Yeah, well, he picked Hamlin last week too, so you got that covered on that end. So with that, our final segment coming up in just one moment. Let's go racing with David Starr, presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year in David's 08 Ford Mustang. We want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck Race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. Jeff, we get several questions like this in some way, shape, or form. So I want to kind of just lump it all together from the Let's Go Racing audience. We'll put it that way. Tell us about how JeffGluck.com came about, what it was like covering the sport independently between USA Today and the Athletic there.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time in my life for sure. Very scary, but very just exciting also. So I was at USA Today and I enjoyed working there. But we got a new sports editor and he wasn't too into NASCAR at all. Didn't really know much about the sport or grasp it. I don't really think he cared about NASCAR. So I had gone to him and said, my wife, she was trying to become a child life specialist at a children's hospital, which is someone who kind of goes around to the rooms and provides support for the families, talks to kids about what the procedures might be like, or just tries to provide comfort in a way, whether it's to the siblings or the parents or the patients, to make them a little bit more comfortable or less scared of what's going on. And so she was needing to do her internship for that and move away from Charlotte where we were living. And then she was going to try to find a job somewhere. So I told USA Today, hey, I'm just going to relocate and I'll just fly to the races from, wherever we end up. And I didn't even think, I legitimately didn't think that would be a problem because they had many other writers who, like the NFL writers, for instance, right? They would live in any city and then they would fly to the NFL games, the biggest game of the week. But the sports editor said, no, you're not allowed to move. I'm sorry. And I was like, wait a minute. Why? He's like, we need you to be in Charlotte. And I'm like, but it's not like I'm going to the race shops in Charlotte. I mean, we do 90% of our work at the tracks. I mean, yes, every once in a while, there might be some, the Kyle Busch press conference or something that's a big press conference. But we don't go to, we get all our interviews at the track. We do everything at the track. So, but he said, no, sorry. So I was like, okay, well, this is putting me in a tough spot here. I'm not going to tell my wife, your dreams of helping children at the hospital. Yeah, no, you can't do that. We're going to have to stay in Charlotte, So I quit after thinking about it for a couple of weeks. And I was like, well, what am I going to do here? So I decided to start, a crowd-funded site. And I was pretty resigned to okay, this may not work. This is a really good chance this may not work. This may be the end of my road in NASCAR. I may be working at Starbucks, driving Uber, or delivering Amazon. I don't know. We'll just see here. But I didn't have anything. Fortunately, it worked out. I got a lot of support from readers who didn't want me to go away, I guess. Excuse me. So, I was pretty happy doing that for 2.5 years. And then the Athletic came calling. And it was like, I don't know, I was pretty torn because I really liked that relationship that I had with my supporters and the readers and the listeners. Like it felt so intimate. Like I had this great Facebook group, which it still exists. I had all these, basically like video chats with people and texting with people. And it just felt like, I was working for them and it was just such a nice direct relationship. But I was also wanting to have kids, and a real job like that has health benefits, and not to be boring, but that's pretty much, health insurance is very expensive and means a lot. So, I was like, well, it would be nice to have job security and be able to start a family. And now we have 2 kids. So, we couldn't have done that really without having that, you know what I mean? So, that's where I am. And the Athletic's been great. It's been fun to be part of like a growing brand and a growing company. And they're making a lot of gains in the sports world and stuff. So, it's been enjoyable, but it was fun in the jeffgluck.com days, just because it was just so unique and different than what I've ever done.
Do you ever see yourself wanting to do that again down the road, maybe twilight of your career or at another point? Is that something you could see yourself doing again?
I've thought about whether it would even work again, because at the time I did it, there wasn't really, now everybody has like a Substack or like everybody's asking you to be like a super follower on Twitter, or give me $5 a month for this, or $5 a month for
We're
this.
chatting on YouTube.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I think the timing that I did it, it just happened to be where not a lot of people were doing that. Not everybody wasn't paying, for their streaming services and for subscriptions all over the place. I think it might be a tougher road if I tried to do it again. And then the other thing I think about too, like I had left to go to the Athletic in the middle of 2019. Let's say I had still been doing the jeffgluck.com thing during the pandemic, where the economy got really bad and people were struggling. I think it would have been tough to stay afloat at that point. Like that might have been the end of what I was doing then, because people might have said, hey, I liked your site, but I can't give you $5 or $10 a month right now when everybody's losing their jobs, or, my restaurant just closed and, people are getting laid off, or travel shut down. Sorry, Jeff. So I don't know if I would have made it through that. So it kind of makes me nervous that if I was ever to do something like that again, I don't know if it would work. I really don't. So that might have been just a moment in time, sort of, that just, I happened to get incredibly lucky.
Absolutely. But still a cool venture nonetheless. You don't see a lot of people taking on that entrepreneurship and those entrepreneurial skills. I mean, what do you think was the biggest lesson you learned in that entire thing?
It's really easy to overextend yourself. And I felt guilty, actually, almost like every day. I felt like I was never doing enough for the people that were funding me. Whether it was, gosh, I didn't go in the Facebook group today and say hi, or like check in with people, or this person had, messaged me last week wanting a sticker, and oh my gosh, I haven't sent out that sticker yet, or, oh, I promised, this person had asked if I would, because I would, do these things where like, oh, I'd have phone calls with people if they wanted to, or whatever. And, I just would, there was so many people to try to please. And, I think most of the people probably were just like, yeah, we don't care. We're just trying to support you. But then there was other people who were like, hey, I expected more out of you, or I expected more interaction from you directly, and I'm disappointed that I'm not getting that. And, I had like something like 2,000 different people paying, a variety, and you just felt like, am I letting these people down? Am I, just like there was always something to be doing, trying to keep the website from crashing, trying to keep the podcast going, trying to, just get your content out in every way, and answer people's questions. And it was just a lot, because really it was endless. And so you'd wake up every day just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. I need to start going right away. And then you'd feel like at the end of every day, I didn't get enough done. I let these people down. And that was hard for me. Just sort of that constant feeling, it's almost easier sometimes when you have a boss and your boss is like, yep, we're good. All right. Talk to you tomorrow. You're like, okay,
right.
I did my job for the day.
Well, and Jeff, I've always admired from afar. I know this is the first time we've gotten to talk face to face, but seeing just your interaction, whether it was those days with the jeffgluck.com thing, or the tweet ups that you and Bob Pockrass do and everything every week, and the people that show up for that. Tell me about that. How did that all come about, of doing these tweet ups every week?
Yeah, I got on Twitter in 2009, and it was I probably had maybe 2,000 Twitter followers at the time, and I'd gotten to a point where people would start to tweet me and be like, hey, like, are you going to be around the track this week? Like, let's meet up. I'd love to say hi to you. So I sort of found myself, being like, okay, well, all right, why don't you meet me after practice over here? Or like, I'll meet you at 2:00 over here, like different people. And I would try to go say hi to them or whatever. And it got to a point where it was like, it was kind of taken away from the job a little bit, because I had work to do, and I was sort of running all around trying to meet with people who I wanted to meet because I knew them from Twitter. But I just said, God, maybe we could just all meet in one place, if I just give it time. So that's kind of how it started. And Atlanta Labor Day weekend 2009 was the first one. And 3 people showed up. And then the next one was Richmond the next week. And 2 dudes showed up and we met under the grandstands. It was sort of like a blind date. Like, are you here for, oh yeah, that's me. Oh, hey, yeah, so, but they just kept growing. I mean, I just kept doing them every week and they kept growing. And Bob joined in and we started getting drivers and it started ballooning. And now it's really my favorite thing, easily every week, because you end up seeing people's names on Twitter, especially the people that are like positive or say, hey, I love the podcast this week, or I loved your article, this was great, or I like seeing the pictures of your daughters. And you start to, even though, you might have a lot of followers, you start to see the same people's names, because I read all my replies. And so when somebody comes up to me at tweet up, they're like, hey, I know we've never met, but my Twitter name is whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's you? Like, whoa, like, I feel like we're friends. Like, I know you. So it's really exciting. I mean, it feels like you're having like a reunion with friends, like every week to me. And you get to really hear what's on their mind. Like, well, hey, what do you guys think of this rules change? Or like, what do you think of the playoffs so far? What do you think of this driver doing this or saying this? What do you guys think of the safety stuff? Do you care? What do you think of the schedule? And so that really helps me stay connected and grounded. I feel like, instead of living in some sort of bubble where I just have my opinion and I'm just spouting my opinions out, I'm hearing from them directly. Like, sometimes I might think something, they're like, yeah, I don't really care about that. And I'm like, oh, okay. They're cool with that, or sometimes they're upset about something that I'm not upset about for NASCAR. And I'm thinking, oh, I need to pay more attention to this because that's a hot topic. So I think it's really important to just make sure you're interacting with your audience as much as you can, because that's who you make your content for, right?
Absolutely. All right. Connecting with your audience, so key, so vital, and it's awesome to see what you're doing on that front, Jeff. Couple more things here, and then we have a very special treat to end today's show. Got a question coming in. This one's for Jeff here from our buddy John Heverlin. You may know. Mm-hmm. Just remind him that
is this a Jets question? I know he's going to ask me about the Jets, isn't he?
Just remind him the New York Jets are 4-1 since he called them losers in his Kansas column last month.
It's so true. And here's the thing. I'm wrong a lot. So this is really not surprising that I'm wrong about this as well. I was trying to think of like the perennial losers. And I was like, you know what? The Jets suck. I'll just say the Jets. Jets fans love punishment. Now look, my team, the Broncos. I mean, gosh, can it get worse than that? I mean, they're like pathetic.
All that money they paid Russell Wilson. Ooh.
Yeah. So I really have no right to call anybody. I should just use the Broncos fans for being gluttons for punishment. But I mean, you're talking to somebody here who, in my preseason preview and our picks of like the superlatives of what was going to happen this year, for biggest disappointment, I predicted Trackhouse Racing would be the biggest disappointment of 2022. So I don't know what I'm talking about anything. Okay. So it doesn't surprise me that I was wrong about the Jets, or reverse jinx them, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think if Trackhouse goes on to not win the championship, it'll certainly be a disappointment. So in that regard, you might be right.
It's funny, every time they've done something good, like because Justin Marks has been on me from the day that article came out, and he even talked about it at the start of the playoffs at their company meeting as bulletin board material. Read it to the entire company, my prediction. And so every time something has happened, whether it's Ross winning a race, Suarez winning a race, Ross advancing the next round, I just text Justin, biggest disappointment of the year, and just falling on my sword.
Gag, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Another one here. Jason wants to know, the man that's not here with us this week, that's busy, Mr. David Starr. Question from Jason: do you have any David Starr interactions, funny stories, or cool interviews over the years?
No, I mean, I've hardly. No, I saw him in Las Vegas, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be on your podcast." But
and then he's like, "I'm not showing up." Then
that must be the reason. But no, I don't. I haven't really interacted with him too much over the years. I should have, but no, I don't. I'm sorry. I wish I had some great, memorable, funny thing that I did, or stupid comment that I made, or something. But or time he got mad at me or something. But that's really most of the driver stories is the time X driver got mad at me, and you know, that's how they go.
Yeah, those are always fun, Tyler. Pissing off Jimmy Johnson in Atlanta a few years back has to be towards the top of the list for better or worse. So yeah, I know what you mean, Jeff.
You pissed him off, or I did?
No, I pissed him off. I pissed him off so bad.
Oh.
So, real quick story. We were in the media center, and my buddy Matt Corse and I were covering the race weekend together, and we're looking at some stories, and I'm looking, well, he's looking. He's like, Dom, look, if Johnson doesn't finish top 10 today, this will be the longest top 10-less streak of his career, like ever in the Cup Series. I'm like, what, really? So like I start looking at the numbers, and sure enough, if he doesn't finish top 10, it's like 8 or 9 straight races without a top 10. At that time, a record for him. I mean, that's the longest streak at that time. So I tell Matt, yeah, so he's writing up the story. You need to interview Johnson about it. And he's like, nah, man, I don't want to ask him about it. Can you do that for me? I said, sure, I'll go ask Johnson. So sure, Johnson finished 29th or 30th or whatever, 2 or 3 laps down. Kevin Harvick won the race. And at that time, they would pull the top 5 to one side of pit road, and then everybody else would scram 6th place on. So like the rain just started falling. Harvick wins this race, early 2018. And I'm on pit road. I'm looking for the 48 car. And I see Johnson, and I flag him down. I ask him, hey, can I walk and talk with you? And he's like, sure. And his PR lady, like, no, don't. And like all these fireworks start going off. And I tell her, I said, well, he said I could. And she's, all right, whatever. So we climb over the pit wall. And I asked Jimmy, I said, so whatever amount of races it was, I said, since your last top 10 finish, and that's the longest of your career, what needs to be done to turn it around, or something to that effect? And he turns and he looks at me and he says, I don't know. You tell me. We'll figure it out. And he gets on his golf cart and leaves. And I thought that was the end of it. Well, I'm on the airplane leaving Atlanta to go back to New Mexico the next day. And his PR girl found me on Twitter, reached out, and like asked me what the whole thing was about. So we went back and forth, and we cleared the air the next week in Las Vegas. But I guess Johnson did not like my question. It stayed with him.
Wow. Well, I mean, that sounds like a fair question to me, unfortunately, but I guess he was probably just not in the mood for it. But I don't think you did anything wrong there personally. But
yeah, I don't know. That was a you know, that interaction was interesting. And then a few weeks later, he picked up his first top 10 of the year at Auto Club, and I was there covering that. I was like, I want to go talk to Johnson about his first top 10 of the year. And he saw me come, and he kind of did like that little hero pose, like, yeah, come interview me now.
That's great.
What about you, Jeff? What comes to mind of some of the interactions you've had, some of those exchanges with drivers over the years?
Oh man, there's probably too many to count. Unfortunately, I've been at it a long time, and you just, I don't know. It's just tough to avoid. You know, we're not PR people, so we're inevitably going to write or say things or ask questions that people don't like or don't agree with. And, you know, it would be nice if everybody would just, in a perfect world, you know, they'd see what you'd write. Like Dom saying, oh, you know, he doesn't have a lot of top 10s. And Jimmy would say, well, that's fair. I mean, we're not performing right now, and it's unfortunate. And that's a fair question. But a lot of people, you know, especially the heat of the moment, they're so frustrated, and, you know, they just can't get past it. So I've been yelled at, cursed at, gotten the silent treatment for a while. There's been plenty of not so great moments, but those are sort of the battle wounds that you go through, I guess.
Tyler, you have to have some stories too, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some interviews, you know, because I've never been I've only done a little bit of print, so for me, it's mostly been live on air stuff over the years in radio. And when I did, radio and with different athletes or analysts and some back and forths, it's always intriguing. I think actually one in particular was on my other podcast I do, the Jones Report, with the Cope twins. I think they hung up on me at one point. It was after the Kevin Harvick situation, just asking some fair questions, whatever. So that's in the way back machine. That was a while. That was a long time ago. So, yeah. So that's where I come from. Dominic, before we go, we have a very special treat on hand here. Jeff, I don't know if you've heard, but this weekend, our buddy here, Dominic, is getting married. And Dominic, you have a special guest here with us before we send you off to get hitched, right?
Hey, absolutely. My fiance Felice is here on the show with us. Tyler said, and asked, I should say, if Felice could come on the show, and I said, yeah, we'll make it happen. So she's here, Tyler.
Let's see.
Are you there, Felice?
Did she fall asleep on the Zoom call?
Uh-oh.
I'm here.
Here we go.
Hi, Felice.
Hi.
Go ahead and turn your camera on here. There we
There
go.
you go.
Hey, there she is. Hello.
Hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you guys excited, nervous? How are you feeling?
I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, no, super excited. Definitely. It's like, it just doesn't feel real, man. Like the time has just clicked off, all the marriage preparation, everything we've needed to get done. It, like on my end, I can't speak for Felice, but it really hasn't been that stressful. And it's just more like, wow, it's already here.
I think it's great because, your wedding is sort of like the one time where like all your friends and family, like they're there to like celebrate you. It's like you go to people's birthday parties and stuff. Sometimes you go to, even like funerals, people go there, but the person's not even around. Like your wedding is like this unique time in your life where people like come together and it's all about you and they're just so happy for you and your relationship. And it's great. It's amazing. So that's cool.
All right. Felice, we'll be nice to Dominic. I know that we do. He turns into a punching bag for us sometimes on this show.
Hey, y'all can roast me. That's fine. That's fine. The roasted Dominic Aragon. That's cool.
Okay. So tell us, I'll do this about your future husband here. Tell us the best thing about him and then embarrass him a little bit too.
Oh, no. Best thing about him, everything.
Oh, how about
Wow.
that? That's really nice.
Oh, he's so cute. Embarrassing. I don't know. What's something embarrassing?
Has there been a time where you've been like, oh my God, you just did not just say that? Or why am I around you right now?
No. I don't know. Well, there was that one time you couldn't open the soda.
Yeah, we were in the car and I don't even remember where it was from. It was like a foreign soda and I could not for the life of me figure it out. I think she even recorded, there's some sort of video somewhere, like struggling for 3 minutes trying to open it and you got it, no problem.
No, and then you spilled it all over yourself.
Yeah, and I did get a little bit over myself too, yes.
You left that detail out, Dominic. Dominic, tell us about Felice here. You can leave out the embarrassing part. We'll be nice to Felice. Okay,
all right. Well, as we like to say, right, Jeff and Tyler are covering news. Sometimes we just really kick ass at our coverage, right? I think I certainly outkicked my coverage with Felice. She's somebody who completes me and is truly my better half, and certainly can't wait to be married and start our life together. It's going to be awesome, and we're just getting started.
That's awesome. I'm so
That's
happy
wonderful.
for you guys.
Jeff, out of all of us here, you mentioned you're the married one with the kids at home and everything. Any advice for Dominic here? What's for what he's ahead? How his life's about to change here?
Just never go to bed angry at each other. Try to, if you get in a fight or you have a disagreement, even if you're both pissed, try not to go to bed mad. It's just better to talk it out and just get back on the same page, and don't let stuff fester or linger. Because then it comes out in other ways, then somebody's mad about the laundry or something like that. But they're not really mad about the laundry. They're just mad about what happened yesterday. And, it's just better to, that's what I'd say. Don't go to bed angry.
I like it. And Jeff, we talked in Texas a few weeks back about like, hey man, as your son gets here, any questions you have, dude, I hope you opened a can of worms. I'm totally going to be hitting you up for some advice here and there when stuff does come up, man. Because I appreciate you.
Please do. No, parenting is the biggest adventure there is. So, please hit me up anytime. I'll talk about parenting all day.
Jeff, since you mentioned, your wife and your kids and everything, take a moment to just tell this, brag on the family here a bit. How cool is it being a husband and a father at home?
Whew, man. Well, it's getting a little bit better. When you have two young kids, every day is pretty much it's like honestly about like sheer survival. It's like, I think my oldest just turned 4, and then we have a 1.5-year-old. And, for the first year of like having two of them at the same time and both having so many needs and all that stuff, it just felt like, honestly, we're just like drowning like all the time. Now we're to the point where we're treading water. So we're not drowning, but we're not exactly like swimming or we're on the ship with smooth sailing yet at all. But it's better than drowning, right? So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Shout out to all the parents out there. It's you go from, hey, like, you want to go somewhere? You want to watch this show on TV? You wanted to go do this? And all of a sudden kids come along and like everything's about them. It's just like you are trying to keep another human alive, and it's tough. But everybody says, it does get easier, when you don't have to change diapers, when you don't have to spoon feed them, when you don't have to dress them, when once they get to like a normal age, when they're like 8, 9, 10, it's a lot easier, of course, but then they're not cute anymore. So then you missed it when they were babies, apparently. But I think all these parents always tell me, oh, just soak it up now, cherish the days now while they're still young. It's going to go by so fast, you're going to miss it. And I'm just kind of like, dude, I just want to sleep. Like I could barely survive right now. So, I get what they're saying, and I see old pictures and I'm like, oh, I miss those times a little bit, but I think you only remember the good parts and not the part where you were going to the grocery store and your kid had a massive poopy blowout and it's all over the seat, and you're in the grocery store parking lot trying to clean it and it's everywhere and they're screaming and crying. You're like, but hey, parenting. So yay.
All right, Felice, we got all that to look forward to. It's going to be fun.
Sorry, I just scared you.
Oh, guys, a lot of fun. Great show today. David will be back with us next week. Jeff, awesome, man. Loved having you here. Where can people find you and follow you and see all the great work you're doing, man?
I'm Jeff_Gluck on Twitter and Instagram. I think I'm Jeff_Gluck on TikTok too. But I might just be Jeff Gluck on there. Either way, not very many people have this name, so I was able to scoop those up. And you can also find me at theathletic.com/motorsports.
Jeff Gluck AF.
That's right. I was that for a while.
I did like that Twitter headline there for a couple years ago. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, that was fun.
Different. That's when you were going boss, right?
That was also a different time on social media in general. I don't think Twitter was as bad as it was now. Twitter was a lot more fun even a few years ago. But
find Jeff there, and he'll be out at Austin this weekend at COTA Circuit of the Americas. or as David likes to say, circus of the Americas this weekend. Dominic, we're going to be in the same place this weekend. I'm going to this wedding. You're dragging me out to Santa Fe this weekend here.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to have you. We get to see you here in a couple of days, and we'll celebrate this weekend. And yeah, at least we get to have Tyler along for the ride.
Yay.
Have you been to Santa Fe? I love Santa Fe.
I have not been since I was like in junior high. I've been to New Mexico, within the last couple of years, but it's been a minute since I've been out to Santa Fe. So,
oh, what a great town.
Yeah.
Of course, I love Albuquerque as well, but Santa Fe is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited, happy for these two, and should be a fun weekend as well. So
that's great. Send me some pictures, everybody.
We sure will, man. Yeah, you'll be there in spirit.
Thank you.
Guys, we got to go. We'll put the checkered flag out on this episode of Let's Go Racing. As always, you can subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every Wednesday. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. If you're watching on that YouTube, hit the like button if you would as well. Show us some love, support. All the likes certainly help. We'll take every single one we can get. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Starr Podcast, Facebook at Starr Podcast as well. And you can email us, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. For Dominic Aragon, for Jeff Gluck, our entire crew, Todd Moore Jones, thanks so long. This has been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.